Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon so that you never miss any video lesson from RAU'S IAS Study Circle.
Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified, an analysis of the Hindu newspaper from UPSC perspective. Today we will discuss the Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper dated 16th February 2022, and the articles that we will discuss are displayed on your screen. So let us start the discussion. This article on page number 1 is related to various anti-lynching bills that have been passed by state governments like Jharkhand, Rajasthan, West Bengal and Manipur. Now these laws are not being implemented on ground because the center has said that lynching has not been defined as a crime under the Indian Penal Code, and that is why these laws are not being implemented on the ground. Now in this regard, in 2017, the National Crime Records Bureau had collected data on mob lynching, hate crime as well as cow vigilantism. However, this exercise of collection of data related to mob lynching has been stopped by the National Crime Records Bureau after 2017. And this has primarily been because of the objection of the central government here. In this regard, the central government has said that trial should be conducted on people who are involved in mob violence based on the existing provisions of the Indian Penal Code related to murders. So this is the issue that we have on hand, that the laws that have been passed by the state governments related to lynching are not being implemented because of the objections that have been provided by the central government here. Now, in this regard, let us try and understand what exactly is lynching, what are the causes of lynching, or what have been some of the prominent instances of lynching in India. Also, what is the impact of such lynching in the Indian society? And finally, we will look at what are the steps that have been taken till now to stop this menace of lynching. Now, if you try to understand lynching, lynching is simply a form of violence that is conducted by a mob. In this, the mob tries to take law and order in its own hand and it tries to administer justice without a trial. In this regard, the offenders are sometimes executed by the mobs or murdered by the mobs, and this is sometimes done in the form of infliction of torture on such people. And at times, a term lynch law is also used to refer to such crimes because it refers to a self-constituted court that imposes sentence on a person without due process of law. Now, mob lynching is a severe setback to the rule of law that has been provided for in the Indian Constitution. This is because the machinery that is responsible for the implementation of rule of law is not doing so, and people are taking law in their own hands. And that is why this is a problematic issue. Now, what are some of the prominent instances of mob lynching that India has witnessed? One of the instances related to mob lynching was WhatsApp related lynching. Now, we all are aware that WhatsApp is a social media platform which is used to circulate messages. Now, at times, what happened is that in case of WhatsApp lynching, rumors were circulated on the WhatsApp related to gangs operating in particular regions who focus on child abductions and organ harvesting. And based on such rumors, the mob started acting and lynched people in their societies at times based on mere suspicion that they are operating in their society to focus on child abductions and organ harvesting. Other instances of mob lynching include cow vigilantism, in which two famous cases have happened and they are related to killing of Pehlu Khan as well as Tabrez Ansari. Also, there was an instance that happened in 2015 and that is known as Dimapur mob lynching. In this, a rape accused was arrested and was in jail, and a crowd of 7,000 to 8,000 people broke into the jail, pulled that person out and dragged that person on the streets, and he was killed. So that is the level of lynching that is going on, that even the jails are not safe and people are entering into the jails. So these are some of the instances which highlight that mob lynching has become a very crucial issue to handle in order to sustain the rule of law in Indian society. Now, what are the factors that are leading to such instances of mob lynching in the Indian society? Now, first and foremost, the factors include sociological causes in terms of existing issues in the Indian society. However, these issues are sometimes exacerbated because of various other supporting factors. Now, as far as the sociological causes are concerned, people have prejudices against certain communities, and as such, people from those communities are viewed with suspicion. And as such, based on the prejudices and suspicion, the mob violence is sometimes conducted. Also, we are aware that Indian society is deeply divided into different castes, and at times the lower caste is at the receiving end of such mob violence. Also, mob instances have been witnessed because of the communalism that exists in our society. And also, mob lynching has been seen in case of political violence. And one of the prominent example of such political violence was the violence that was witnessed in the state of West Bengal. Now, besides these existing sociological factors that exist in our society, there are certain factors which increase the intensity of such incidents. Now, what are these? First is the lack of trust or trust deficit that people have with police. This is because when people lose faith on law and order machinery, they start taking laws in their own hand. Second factor that increases the intensity of such incidents is the low conviction rate in cases of mob violence. This is mainly because it becomes difficult for the police to arrest people because mob is sometimes faceless. And that is why miscreants or antisocial elements sometimes try to misuse the mobs to conduct such violence. Further, social media has also contributed to increase in such incidents. This is because it has become very easy to circulate rumors on social media platforms like WhatsApp and Facebook. And also we are witnessing increase in caste related instances in cases of Gujarat, etc., and also issues related to honor killings and communalism. So combinedly, these are the causes which are seen as contributing to the instances of mob violence in India. Now, the next question that should come into our mind is that why is it so difficult to control the instances of mob violence? Let us look at these factors. So, the mob violence is difficult to control because there is lack of special law related to mob violence. And because of the lack of any specific or special law related to lynching, most of the time the perpetrators get away with most heinous of the crimes. Also, we are aware that mob is seen as faceless and it becomes difficult for the police to register cases against people in that instance. And that is why the facelessness of the mob makes it difficult to control such crimes. Also, at times, such instances have social approval. This is because the mob violence at times takes place because of the underlying social fault lines, and at times such kinds of crimes have social approval. Also, there is problem of witnesses in cases of such mob violence because everyone who is present on the spot is at times involved in the crime. And finally, the police is also not held accountable for stopping of such crimes. So these are some of the factors which make it difficult for controlling of the mob violence. So let us look at what are the possible impacts of such mob lynching. First is that it impacts the international image of India as a democracy and it spreads negative image of Indian society and state at an international status. Also, such kind of instances of mob lynching have the potential of loosening the social fabric of India. We all are aware that India is a diverse society, and if such instances of mob violence keep on happening, it is going to further divide the society. Besides the loosening of the social fabric, such instances of mob violence also have economic impact. This is because at times such instances or incidents disrupt the normal functioning of the markets. Further, such instances of mob violence also reduce the investor's sentiment. And this is because any investor would want proper law and order, and that is why it also impacts the investor's sentiment. Further, it has the potential of threatening India's internal security. And rising instances are, of course, going to threaten the cases of internal security in India. Also, it reduces the authority of the police to act and sows the seeds of enmity, which can become the reason for further instability. In this regard, let us look at what are some of the steps that have been taken to stop the menace of mob lynching. Now, if you look at police and public order, they are state subjects under the 7th schedule of the Indian Constitution. However, the Ministry of Home Affairs have issued advisory to the states and union territories from time to time to maintain law and order and ensure curbs on these instances of mob violence. Also, Supreme Court has come out with guidelines to control the instances of mob violence. In this regard, Supreme Court has suggested that a nodal police officer should be appointed at the district level to take measures to prevent incidents of mob violence and lynching. Also, these guidelines focus on increasing awareness against the mob taking law in its own hand. And also, the Supreme Court guidelines talk about checking the potential misuse of, and also the government should also use social media effectively to create awareness. Besides this, certain state governments have come up with laws that have been enacted to stop mob violence. However, these laws are not being implemented because of the objections that have been raised by the central government in this regard. And a civil society campaign has been started for this, and this campaign talks about a law that is Manav Suraksha Kanun or Masuka. In this, they talk about defining the mob lynching as a crime properly and also providing severe punishment for such instances of mob violence. So these are some of the issues associated with mob violence that we have seen. That is, what are its causes? Why is it so difficult to control such instances of mob violence? And what are its potential impacts? And what are some of the steps that have been taken? So with this, let's take up the next news article now. Now, this article on page number 9 has been written in the context of the recent Supreme Court judgment upholding the 27% quota for other backward classes in the All India quota seats for the National Eligibility cum Entrance Test. In this regard, the author highlights that although the intention of the reservation policy is good, but because of the lack of accurate demographic data about various castes, the present system of quota allocations, like the 27% quota for the OBCs and the caps, seem illogical and arbitrary at times. And that is why there has been increasing demand of enumerating the caste-based census in India. In this regard, various state governments have also been asking the central government to reveal the caste data of the socio-economic caste census. In this regard, let us look at the timeline of the efforts that have been made to collect the caste-related data. Also, we'll look at the issues related to need for such caste-based data and also some of the possible negative consequences of such caste-based census in India. Let us look at all these aspects to understand the issue of caste-based census. Now, looking at the caste-based census timeline, if you look at the pre-independence efforts to enumerate the caste data, it was in 1871 census which had the first attempt to measure the population and enumerate caste data across India. Further, such exercise was conducted again in 1931 during the British times, and this was the last exercise to enumerate the caste data in India. Now, after independence, the government decided as a matter of policy not to enumerate caste-wise population other than the total SC and the ST population. And that is why even after 75 years of independence, we do not have caste-related data in India despite the continuation of the policy of reservation, which is based on caste. However, another issue here is that India's largest caste bloc, that is the other backward classes, have not figured in any census from 1951 to 2011. However, we all are aware that as per the Mangal Commission report, it extended the benefit of reservation to the OBCs. And that is why the reservation to the OBCs is still based on the 1931 census. And this census provided that 52% of the Indian population belonged to the other backward classes. And based on this data of the 1931 census, 27% reservation has been given to them. So in 2011, a socio-economic caste census was conducted, and the SECC 2011 was the first caste-based census since 1931. So it was conducted by the Ministry of Rural Development and the Ministry of Housing and Urban Poverty Alleviation in rural and the urban areas respectively. Now, despite such a comprehensive exercise that was conducted under the Socio-Economic Caste Census 2011, the caste data has not been disclosed by the Government of India. In this backdrop, now since the reservation has been provided to the other backward classes based on the Mandal Commission's recommendation, and this reservation has been provided based on the data that was available from 1931 census, and this data has not been updated till now, the author highlights that such kind of caps like the 27% reservation to the OBCs is illogical in nature. In this backdrop, let us try and understand what is the need for caste-based data. Let us understand the need for such kind of exercise and the revelation of such caste-based data. Now, if you look at the need for caste-based data, first and foremost reason is that it will estimate the change in demography that has taken place, because the last caste-based census was conducted back in 1931, and after that the Indian demography has changed a lot. So in the last 80 to 90 years, even when the demography has changed, the reservation that has been provided to the other backward classes is based on the 1931 census. So that does not seem logical and seems arbitrary in nature, and that is why we need caste-based data. Second is to bring about social justice. That is, it helps the government's welfare schemes reach the most backward and deprived classes that have been marginalized till date. This is because the reservation policy is being used only by some of the privileged sections even within the reserved classes. And that is why, to bring about social justice, there is a perfect need for caste-based data. This kind of exercise will also help in rationalizing the reservation policy as per the need of a specific caste or community. Now, in the course of the reservation policy that has been provided since independence, some of the caste groups might have benefited while others might not have benefited so much, and that is why it will help in rationalizing the reservation policy in the long term. Also, we have been witnessing various demands for reservation by different caste groups, and these include some of the dominant castes like Jats, Kapus, Patidars, Marathas, etc. And these caste groups have been demanding the inclusion of these castes into OBC reservation. However, these demands are not sometimes rational or based on any scientific data. And that is why the socioeconomic caste census will bring out the real picture of reservation and the need for reservation for such communities, etc. Further, there have been demands of OBC subcategorization. This is because there are certain groups, even within the other backward classes, which are more prosperous and do not require reservations benefits, while there are other groups which are really in need of the reservation. So, the OBC membership, as we all are aware, which constitutes about 52% of the population, according to the 1931 census, is a large and heterogeneous group. And there are a lot of differences within different caste groups that constitute the other backward classes. And as a result of this, some better off groups among the other backward castes have cornered a disproportionately large share of seats which have been reserved for the other backward castes. And this has given rise to the demand of subclassification of various caste groups amongst the OBCs. And that is why, in such a scenario, the caste based socioeconomic census is the need of the hour. Also, such kind of data will be helpful in assessing the impact of the affirmative action or the reservation policies, that is, what kind of change has been brought about by the implementation of the reservation policy and the affirmative action. So, these are some of the factors which highlight the need for caste based data. Further, such caste based census can have negative consequences like caste based vote bank politics and also further division of the Indian society into caste groups. So, looking at the possible negative consequences of the caste based census, it is said that it is going to subvert India's anti caste struggle. Now, caste based divisions have been one of the biggest problems of the Indian society for a very long period of time. And some of our leaders like B.R. Ambedkar and Mahatma Gandhi tried to reduce the caste struggle. However, if such caste based census is brought about and caste identities are strengthened, then such kind of anti caste struggle will get a setback. So, another associated issue is the reinforcement of the caste identities based on such caste census data. That is, enumeration of the castes might reinforce the caste identities which are already existing in the society or are prevalent in the society. Further, such caste wise data may be used as a tool for caste based political mobilization. That is, we have the fears of vote bank politics, which we already are aware is happening in the Indian politics. Further, based on the new caste data, there will be new demands for reservation, and the numbers about the other backward classes might provide a new issue to the regional parties to mount pressure on the center for an OBC quota in the central government jobs and educational institutions. So, these are some of the negative sides of conducting a caste based census. So, these are some of the points in favor of and against the caste based data. With this, let's take up the next news article now. Now, this article on page number 1 is related to the external trade of India for the month of January 2022. And according to this data, in January 2022, there has been increase in the exports and decrease in the imports in comparison to January 2021, that is last year. And this has reduced the trade deficit in January 2022, which is a positive sign for Indian economy. So regarding the actual data, the exports have increased to about $34.5 billion in January 2022. That is 25% higher than an year ago. And as compared to this, the imports have grown at a slower pace. So this is a positive sign overall. But from exam perspective, what is important for us is to understand India's merchandise trade, and questions can be asked related to such important data which has been provided for in the economic survey. So the economic survey provides the India's merchandise trade data in 2021 and 22 between April 21 to November 2021. In this, the top 5 export commodities of India included petroleum, pearls and precious stones, iron and steel, drug formulations and gold jewelry. Now, as far as the top 5 export destinations for India are concerned, the top export destination of India is United States of America, followed by UAE or the United Arab Emirates, China, Bangladesh and Hong Kong. And the top 5 import commodities for India are, of course, the crude oil, followed by gold and petroleum products, pearls, as well as precious stones and coal. And top 5 import sources or the countries from which India is importing include: the highest imports are from China, followed by UAE, followed by USA, Saudi Arabia and Iraq. Now, such kind of data can be asked in your preliminary examination paper. And that is why at the end of this discussion, you can attempt a quiz and a question based on this important data, which can be asked in your prelims examination. So if you look at India's top trading partners, India had the most favorable trade balance with United States of America, followed by Bangladesh and Nepal, which can be seen in this particular table that has been provided for in the economic survey. That is, India had the best or favorable trade balance with United States of America, Bangladesh and Nepal. That is, the trade with these three countries was surplus in nature and was not deficit. That is, Indian exports were more as compared to the imports from these countries. However, the highest trade deficit that India has is with China, followed by Iraq and Switzerland. So this can also be one of the important aspect for us from the prelims examination perspective. That is, India's highest trade deficit is with China. And this has come at a time when India is already facing border issues with China. That is why such huge trade deficit, where the government is projecting that it wants to become Atmanirbhar and not be dependent upon the imports from China. Despite such efforts by the government of India, the trade deficit of India with China was the highest. Plus, China was the country from which India has the highest amount of imports. That is why this is also a problematic thing for India's diplomatic relations. So this is some of the data which can be asked in our preliminary examination. With this, let's take up the next news article now. This article on page number 10 is related to the Munich Security Conference that will be held in the coming days. And India will participate at this Munich Security Conference. And it is being said that India might come under pressure on the issue of Russia and Ukraine. This is because the European countries that will participate in this Munich Security Conference are going to pressurize India to talk in stand of the territorial integrity of the Ukraine in case of a possible invasion by Russia. Now, in this regard, it is learned that Russia is not going to attend this Munich Security Conference this year, which is held annually. Previously, Russia has been participating in this Munich Security Conference. In this regard, from us, from the exam perspective, what is important is, what is this Munich Security Conference? This can be a question for us from the prelims examination perspective. Also, we need to understand what is the stand of India regarding the Ukraine issue. Let us look at both these things. Now, first thing that we need to understand about the Munich Security Conference is that it is not associated with the United Nations. And it is simply a conference which is an annual conference on international security policy, and it has been held in Munich in Bavaria in Germany since 1963. So it is as old as 1963, and annually this conference is held. Now, the importance of this Munich Security Conference is that it brings on table different countries of the world to discuss the security related issues. That is why the Munich Security Conference is the world's leading forum for debating international security policy, and it is a venue for diplomatic initiatives to address the world's most pressing security concerns. And in the present times, because of the Ukrainian crisis, where a possible Russian invasion is being awaited, this Munich Security Conference can play a key role in providing or handling this issue diplomatically. Further, regarding the attendees at this Munich Security Conference, simply the attendees include not just the head of the states, but governments, international organizations, ministers, members of the parliament, high-ranking representatives of armed forces, science, civil society, as well as business and media. That is, it takes into account or brings to table people from different sectors who are concerned with the security-related issue at an international level. That is why the Munich Security Conference is important, especially in the context of the Ukrainian crisis. Now, in this regard, it is being said that India might be pressurized to take a stand on the issue of Ukraine. And that is because the European countries which will participate in this conference are likely to force India to take a stand in this regard, where India has till now not been taking a very clear stand. So, what has been the stand of India on the Ukrainian issue? So, India's official or the principal stand has been encouraging diplomatic solutions between the North Atlantic Treaty Organization countries and Russia, which are involved in this Ukrainian crisis. Further, India's stand is abstaining from a vote on the discussion at the UN Security Council, also not publicly criticizing Moscow despite Western pressure because of India's close strategic partnership with Russia. Also, India has refused to follow the national sanctions or the sanctions which are not mandated by the United Nations. That is, India is not going to abide by any sanctions that are imposed by United States of America or the European Union. India is only going to abide by the sanctions that are proposed by the United Nations in this regard. So this is the officially stated stand of India on the Ukrainian issue. However, it is being said that the European countries will want India to take a stand on the territorial integrity of the Ukraine. So this is the issue, and these are some facts related to Munich Security Council, and we will also have a practice question on this particular topic in the quiz that is attached to this video on the ELEARN platform. With this, let's take up the next news article now. This article on page number 12 is again important for us from the prelims examination perspective, because this article talks about updation of various guidelines to make it easier for the surveys to be undertaken using the drones for the implementation of a scheme that was launched by the Prime Minister last year, which is known as the SVAMITVA scheme. And it seeks to map land parcels using drone technology and providing records of the rights to those who own property in rural areas. So let us look at some of the aspects of this scheme and what kind of question can be asked in your preliminary examination related to this particular scheme. So if you look at the SVAMITVA scheme, the SVAMITVA stands for Survey of Villages and Mapping with Improvised Technology in Village Areas. It is a central sector scheme which is implemented by Ministry of Panchayati Raj. So this is an important fact related to SVAMITVA scheme which can be asked in our preliminary examination. Regarding this scheme, it is a reformative step towards establishment of clear ownership of property in rural inhabited areas by mapping of land parcels using drone technology, providing record of the rights to village household owners with issuance of legal ownership cards or property cards or title deeds to the property owners. So this aims at using technology for providing record of the rights to the household in the rural areas and issuance of legal ownership cards. Further, regarding the objectives of this scheme, it aims at creation of accurate land records for rural planning and reducing property related disputes in the rural areas. It also aims at bringing financial stability to the citizens in the rural India by enabling them to use their property as a financial asset for taking loans or other financial benefits. Further, it aims at determination of the property tax, which would accrue to the Gram Panchayats directly in the states where it is devolved or else add to the state exchequer. Further, it aims at creation of survey, infrastructure and maps that can be leveraged by any department of the government for their use. And another objective is to support in the preparation of better quality Gram Panchayat development plan by making use of GIS maps. So these are some of the objectives. Now, a question can be asked in the preliminary examination regarding the nodal agency for the implementation of the SVAMITVA scheme, or simply a question can be asked that SVAMITVA scheme is related to which of the following objectives. So objective will simply be providing record of the rights or issuance of legal ownership cards, etc. With this, we conclude today's discussion, and this is the question for the day.